Oh, all right. Yeah, thank you, Luca. Thanks also for inviting me to speak here today at the meetup. My name is Lambros. I'm a PM in the platform engineering tribe here at WISE. And yeah, today I will share our journey towards building a dev portal here at WISE, and hopefully some useful learnings in here for everybody. Okay, so I will cover 3 parts today. The first part will be around how we knew that there is even a problem that is worth solving. Part 2 will be around how we scoped the first version or the alpha of the dev portal, and then part 3 will be how we used this alpha to then be certain that we actually solve the problem. So the validation part. And then questions at the end, of course. Before we dive into the dev portal piece, just a few facts about WISE. Maybe you don't know the company. The WISE mission is money without borders, instant, convenient, transparent, and eventually free. That's the mission. We have a few products that help us achieve this mission. There's the WISE app that lets you hold multiple currencies at the same time, or also enables you to send money across borders for super low fees. We also have business APIs for banks to leverage those low fees. So yeah, go to wise.com and check out the company and the product if you like. Just to share kind of what scale here we're dealing with, right? We have at the moment 13 million customers, growing very fast, and we're responsible for 8 billion pounds of all cross-border volume. That is about 4% of the global volume, actually. So still a lot to do, of course. A few numbers about engineering at WISE. So we have 4,000 employees, 600 engineers at WISE, 16 platform engineering teams, and 6 platform PMs. Yeah, I'm one of them, obviously, and we are hiring. So let me know if you would like to work with us. Just ping me. Okay, so let's start with the first part, right? So now, assuming that there is no dev portal yet, right? So we're just trying to see if there's a problem or discovering the problem at this point. So we have a team at WISE, which is the team that is working on developer experience, DevX team, right? And this team sends out surveys to all of engineering at WISE every 6 months at the moment. And we're kind of covering all aspects of engineering, CI, CD, like the whole kind of journey. And yeah, we have been getting super low scores here around the areas of documentation, discoverability, and context switching, or the float. And yeah, there are also a few quotes here from engineers at WISE. Yeah, a lot of people are, like, a lot of frustration here, definitely. So this was the start of our journey. Basically, there was some problem. Now the next step was, of course, to find out what's going on, like why is this score so low, right? Like who is affected, and is it even worth solving this, right? And how can we solve this? So this is the next step then, which is user research. So for this problem space, right, around documentation and discoverability, we dive one level deeper, right, and try to understand what is going on really. Why is this a problem, right? So in this case, we interviewed 10 engineers across all the organizations, so newbies, more senior people from all tribes, squads, platform, product, just to get like a good mix. And yeah, we asked a few questions with the goal to identify, a few things, such as personas. So what is your role, right? And then also, of course, so what are their goals? Like, what do they want to get done and how is this problem slowing them down, or how does it stop them from achieving their goals, right? And then, of course, also the behavior. So now we know your goal, right? But how do you use our platform? What is your behavior? How do you navigate through our tools and so on? That's the user journeys, right? And the last step is what we call value stream maps. That is just like another layer on the user journey with some additional context. How bad is it, basically? We will see it in the next 2 slides, what this looks like, and examples as well. So that's kind of cool to share as well, I think. How did we interview people? So we had always 3 people interviewing with 3 different roles. So one interviewer who would basically drive the conversation, right? One journey mapper who would just try to understand the user journeys, right? Try to ask those questions, map them out, follow up, and a note taker who would basically try to get all the nuances that maybe other 2 do not capture, right? A few benefits here. Firstly, of course, everybody can focus on their role, right? And secondly, you involve everybody. So I, as PM, had always one hat, so we would rotate, right? But also people from the DevX team, right, would join interviews. So the people who would own this problem and who would ultimately build Dev Portal, they were also there, right? So they could also sympathize with the customer, with the engineer, talk to them and understand their problems. Worked nice for us, so I can definitely suggest that for the future. Results of this user research, right? So as I said, we had a few goals here. One of the goals was identify the personas we're dealing with in this area. So example here, for instance, there's an engineer in the regional team, right? For instance, and this engineer, so they're responsible for making our services work in the regions like Europe or Asia, right? And so on. So they have the problem that they have to change services that they don't own, right? So they obviously suffer a lot from this whole problem on documentation. Just an example, right? There's the newbie, for instance. A newbie, again, a new joiner, right, has this problem around, okay, I don't know anybody yet, so I don't know who to ask. I don't know what tools are available to me. Of course, we have an onboarding process, right? But still, there's things that get missed, best practices, dashboards, new tools, right, and so on. Another persona that we identified that has a lot of problems around that area. So all of those personas, user journeys, jobs to be done, all of this, right, we summarized in value stream maps, okay? So let's take a minute and look at what's going on here. This is the user journey. How does the service work, okay? And you can see there's a subtitle here, which is called jobs to be done, right? So those are the goals that they want to achieve, right? And they use this journey. So for instance, I want to change the service. I want to call a service. I want to understand the service to know what has been changed, right? So for all of those jobs to be done, we use this user journey, right? This is a very common theme that we see. Now, why is this journey so painful? You can see the steps here that we identified. This is like a common path that engineers go through. So they want to understand, how does the service work? How do I change it, right? They would start in Confluence. They would start searching for the docs, would maybe find them. They would be outdated, right? Or maybe not sufficient. Then they would go to GitHub. In GitHub, they would search the readmes. At the end, they would end up maybe at the source code, looking at the source code to understand the service, right? So super inefficient, of course. And then at the end, they would actually, invite a meeting with the owning team to then actually understand the service. So yeah, that's the process. That's why it's so painful, right? The red boxes is what we consider non-value adding tasks in the sense that they don't provide value, don't bring you closer to your goal, right? For instance, find the right person doesn't bring me closer to the goal of how does the service work. And by doing this, we can then assign times to them. And on the left side, there's a summary, right? And that summarizes this journey on average, right? How bad is it, right? So how many non-value adding and value adding tasks are in there, and what is the journey frequency? So there are a few benefits of doing this, right? It helps you to quantify the problem, right? To prioritize those journeys and think about what is maybe the one that is worth solving first, right? It also tells you a lot about the root cause, like what's going on. It helps you to solutionize. It has enough detail for that, right? And yeah, also it's I think useful for validation to see afterwards the journey, right? With this new product, whatever you solve, right? Whatever you do, are you actually making things any better, right? Yep, this was what we did. So we did this for all the personas and journeys. I think we maybe had at the end around 10 or so value stream maps. For instance, stuff like, it's really hard to stay up to date about news in engineering, changes that affect me, right? Another one is finding out about any useful tools, as you saw before with the newbie, right? Or another one is around finding out about maybe dashboards that are relevant to me, that are new, and so on. So if you look at all those journeys, right, and value stream maps, and try to quantify the impact of this, right, to our developers' productivity, we think that it's about 2 hours of wasted time per developer per week as a minimum, probably more than that. It slows down onboarding by maybe around 2 days or so, right? And probably around 2 meetings would be prevented if we would solve this. So this tells us definitely this is probably worth solving, right, as a problem. It is big enough. So yeah, lessons learned from this first part. Do spend enough time on that first part, right? Don't jump into solutions from that survey directly, right? Spend the time, try to understand the root cause, try to quantify it, right? And then this will help you a lot in the next step, which is solutionizing, right? In user interviews, try to go deep, right? Not broad, in the sense that don't ask questions like, or what are all the tools you're using, right? No, try to go really deep. Try to understand, okay, if you want to achieve this goal, right? What do you do exactly? What are the steps you're going through to achieve this goal? And lastly, of course, your team has to be on board, in the sense that, in my case, this whole problem was owned by the developer experience team, right? And they are the ones that ultimately delivered Dev Portal. So they maybe are not used to doing user research, interviews, journeys, and so on, right? So in my case, I was lucky that they were very open-minded, but yeah, have them on board, right, before you start such an exercise as a PM, obviously, right? Okay, now the issues are a little clearer now, right? The discovery is kind of completed. So now let's think about what can we do. First off, why Dev Portal? Of course, the title of the talk kind of indicates where this is going, right? But assuming now that we don't know yet what to build, right? The problem is now a little clearer. Now the question is, what can we do to solve this problem, right? It's not obvious that Dev Portal is a solution, right? Why not just invest in a better conference, right? Or something else, right? So how do you know now? What do you do now to identify the best solution for this, problem area? And this is again where the value stream maps, I think, come in very handy, because they help you to identify this proposition, right? We're going to see this now. So basically, what we did now is we have the value stream maps, the journeys mapped out, as you saw in the previous section, right? We even have quantified them by frequency and by by time, wasteful time, right? So we can prioritize them in a way. And now we can write down solutions, right? Dev Portal, Stack Overflow, Confluence, whatever it might be, right? And you can then think about to what extent does this solution fix this journey, right? And you can multiply them and then sum them up. And at the end, you get a score and you can pick the one with the best match, for instance, right? And this again worked pretty well for us. Of course, now big surprise, obviously we went for Dev Portal. It had the best solution problem match in our case. It just has a really holistic approach to addressing those problems around documentation and scalability. It was almost built, right, to solve this problem. And it also covers our more strategic goal as platform engineering, right, to reduce context switching, right, take this mental overhead away from engineers, improve the user experience, right, and so on. We know Dev Portal is what we want. So next step for us was basically building a first version of Dev Portal and see if it actually works and if we are able to solve anything with it, right? Before we get there though, I never told you which Dev Portal we actually used. We did pick Backstage. We looked at several options out there and compared them by the criteria such as solution problem match or commercial aspects, ecosystem, skills in our team, but also, there are some other things that are important here for Backstage. It is CNCF incubating, right? Has a very nice, very strong community, right? They meet up every other month or so. And they also have a very nice way to customize it. It's been built, right, to leverage plugins. So Backstage is a platform. It doesn't it's really plain at the beginning, but you can, of course, build it and create plugins so that it solves your solution, right? That you have, your problem that you have in your organization. That is why I think it's super nice. So question now is, we know it's Backstage. Now, what do we build? What is this alpha scope, right? And so first of all, what is the purpose of an alpha? So of course you want to get early feedback here. So you want to kind of find out, are you on the right track? Can we solve anything here, right? But also want to maybe learn about, is it feasible to use the solution, right? Is it cost effective? So this is, I guess, the biggest challenge at this stage is you want to keep that alpha very small to get early feedback, but you also want to have it big enough, right, to help you with the validation of the problem. That's difficult, right? To kind of make this trade-off. What helps you, I think, is defining hypotheses, right? So we basically, based on those value stream maps and user journeys, we derived hypotheses. And we said to ourselves, we want to at least validate those 5 hypotheses, right, with the alpha before we feel confident that we can move on and go all in, right, with Dev Portal. I only picked 3 here just to make it a little simpler. For instance, we believe we can speed up onboarding of developers. We believe that we can decrease the time it takes to find the right person, or we can decrease the time to understand another team service, as an example, right? And now we use this to then scope the alpha based on those hypotheses. Same thing as before, really, right? So you can use the same method to pick now, what do you want to add to Dev Portal? Like what are, what do you want to add as features? So you can, again, look at those user journeys, the impact of them, right? Look at Dev Portal, look at what it provides, what it offers, what you could build, right? Shortlist features, and then map them against those journeys and think about where is the highest overlap, right? And where is the biggest impact? And then you can pick those features based on that. In our case, we picked 3 features for the alpha scope. First one is what we call Discover Engineering Advice. This is really, this was built to address this problem around, I didn't know this tool exists, right? Or what dashboards are out there? Or what's new, what's coming in engineering, right? What do we have to do? Updates, upgrades, and so on, right? Software catalog. This was built to address this problem around, who do I ask? Who do I ask, right? How does the service work? What are my service dependencies, right? What do I depend on? Those kind of questions. It's really an inventory of everything software, right? Libraries, tools, services, and so on. And then tech docs, lastly, is obviously for documentation, making it super easy to, to render docs as code and also make them searchable and show them nicely in Backstage. So that's a screenshot now. This is actually a screenshot of the alpha of this feature I just mentioned, Discover Engineering Advice. Again, goal here is to make engineering discoverable, right? Meaning that I want to know what's happening. What can I use? Like, what are my tools? What are dashboards, libraries I have to use, best practices, and so on. We cover different domains here. If you click on one, it's going to open up, right? Tell you all about this domain. If you, let's say, click on Kibana, it will then tell you who owns this tool, what's the roadmap, what's coming, right? What are guidelines? What are best practices? And so on. Tips and tricks tells you about incidents, management, testing, and all those kind of things. Yeah, so this was the discovery piece. Software catalog. So again, this is an inventory of everything software that we have at Wise, like tools, libraries, services, websites, and so on. Here's an example of a service component, a service page. And yeah, again, problem, who owns something, right? You can see here the owner is here. There's a team page that tells you everything that they own, source code, tech docs. There's links to dashboards, latest deployments, relevant dashboards, logs. Also here, important relations. As we said, right? We said that one of the pain points we had in the user interviews was, I don't know what I depend on, right? Let's say Kafka, poison pills, and all those problems, right? This was fixed with this relations plugin that would help you to show dependencies between services. And also, a quality score, right, of documentation. Again, the biggest pain point that we had at Wise was just the quality of docs was just not there, right? We would score it by, is it up to date, right? Is it diagrams, and so on. You also have APIs here, which was another pain point we saw in interviews where people would tell us, we have a lack of API documentation. So it was also covered in this first version. And then lastly, tech docs. Of course, this is a Backstage plugin that really helps you to render Markdown you have in GitHub very nicely, right? In Backstage or in Dev Portal, right? It adds a nice navigation menu, makes it searchable, and so on. And here the hope, of course, was to get people into using Docs as code more, right? Get adoption high and get the quality up and make it searchable. Okay, this was the part 2. This was the alpha scope. Lessons learned, I think important is try to not have any bias, right? So it's very easy to say, oh I got the problem. Let's just build this thing, right? I think if you have discipline and match up solutions with problems and try to see where the overlap is the biggest and the biggest impact is there, that's, I think, the best approach. Use wireframes to create alignment. Something I did wrong for sure at the beginning. You want to think about what to do, what to build in alpha, and then everyone has their things in mind, what they want to build. At the end, it doesn't line up. So wireframes really help to get everybody on the same page in the team and to get this alignment. And lastly, I think this is also pretty important, this question around, do you want to have a throwaway alpha or an incremental alpha? Meaning that, do you want to build the alpha, validate it, and throw it away, right? And then you know you can move on. Or do you want to build up on it later on? It's tricky, right? So in our case, I think we did spend a little too much time on the alpha, I think on 3 months or so. It was incremental, right? We used it again for the beta. But of course, the benefits here are that you get familiar with using the technology, right? Throwaway would have been maybe a click dummy or something like this, right? To get that validation. So something to consider at this stage. And then lastly is the validation, right? So now we have built the alpha. We assume we solved something, which still don't know, right? So now we have to find out if we actually made things any better. For this, of course, we have our hypotheses, and we can now use the alpha to see if we fulfill what we assume here, right? So for this, we did user testing. So we basically picked 20 engineers, again, all over the board, new joiners, senior people. And then we basically created 2 groups. And each group, so one group would have dev portal and one wouldn't have dev portal. And then we would give them tasks to solve, right? And then we would compare how the experience is, how long it takes, right? How painful it is to solve this task. And also for the ones with dev portal, we would observe them, how they use it. So we get nice insights about the usability, right? And see if it's actually being used as we expect it to be used. So for instance, this is one example for a task that we picked, right? I have a question about some tool. I have to find the right person to ask, right? Group A, Group B, with and without dev portal. You can see here it's becoming a little better. This one here, I think, is interesting as well. How does the service work? So here the task is basically to make a change to a service, right? A small change. And you would compare how long this would take with and without dev portal, right? You can see here it's actually a little more significant, that improvement. This one, I think, is also very interesting. Remember this page we saw before about Discover Engineering of advice, right? So people would use dev portal, and then you would ask them, now you used it, right? Did you discover any tool that you weren't aware of and that you would use on a daily basis, right? And almost everybody here said yes, that they found something that they didn't know exists and it would be useful to them, right? So to summarize, one more thing, surveys. So we also did surveys. So we gave the alpha to a subset of people, the alpha group, right? I think around 40 people or so. And then would let them use it for a week. And would then create surveys and try to understand, like, what do they think, right? Let's say our hypothesis was we can decrease the time to find the right person. So we would use this and then see if people think this is true or not. It was overall, again, also very positive. Yeah, so summarize the results here. We could validate 4 out of 5 hypotheses with surveys and user testing. Why only 4 out of 5? Well, for some tasks, honestly, the wiki that we have, Confluence, just did better, right? It just did better. Why is that? Well, we're still lacking some doc standards. People don't know really, where to search. There's Confluence, there's GitHub. So where goes what, right? This is the problem. So this is why it wasn't always better to use dev portal. We also identified a few UX improvements. Search was pretty painful, I would say, in the first iteration. Also a problem that we identified. Okay, part 3, lessons learned. I think it's super useful to use hypotheses. They keep you focused, they help you scope that first version, right? Do try to prevent a bias in user testing in the sense that whoever builds dev portal, right, shouldn't be the one that creates the tasks it solves, right, for this testing. So I'll ideally have an independent group create those tasks to then validate that work. And yeah, surveys and the UX testing both, of course, serve their purpose. Some things you just cannot test, right? Let's say, did we improve developer onboarding? This would take months to test, right? To get that certainty. So here you can just use surveys, or what we think, use surveys, and you have to trust the judgment of the users or engineers. Okay, one more slide about what's coming. We decided to move on with the alpha. We decided to continue this and develop a beta of Dev Portal and also open it up to all of engineers. What we did in the beta is a few things based on the learnings of the alpha, right? We added a quality score, where you can also rate documentation. Make it super easy, frictionless to edit documentation, automates APIs documentation, generate them for developers. And lastly, as said before, right, people would use Dev Portal and they would jump to Confluence, right, because there were some docs in there that went in Dev Portal. So that's not ideal. You want to reduce context switching, right, and not increase it. So in this case, we would we plan to implement a search cross sources, right? So we can use Dev Portal search to search across multiple, like GitHub, Confluence, Tech Docs, and so on, to then reduce context switching and to speed up this whole process. And lastly, of course, there are a lot of plugins that we consider to integrate. Of course, you also want to get adoption, right, for Dev Portal. So we're planning to integrate more and more UIs that we already have in platform today, and use plugins to integrate them to get this organic growth and adoption. This was everything. Thank you so much for listening. And now I think we have time for questions. I saw a bunch of things popping up in Zoom. We also have the Slack channel here that you can use, and I'm on that space if you have any questions afterwards as well. Please reach out anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, Lambros. I think that was great. And we've had a few compliments throughout. So Himanshu joined the meetup. Thank you, Lambros. And then Alessandro really enjoyed the scientific approach to your user testing. All right, let's get into some questions. I guess the first one is from Michael. So is it only service portal plus docs? What about user director and company structure?
Yes, we do also have, I think I did mention that really briefly. So if you click on the owner here, right, it would open up the team. But that's a very good point, actually. We do end a team. So we do not add anything above that, but we should. So that's plan, right? It doesn't replace, in our case, Workday yet. But if you want to start analyzing, let's say, doc score per tribe, right, then you have to have that information. Or if you want to start exposing metrics, lead time, right, per team, per squad, per tribe, then you need that as well. So that's a great point. It's not yet there, but we do plan to integrate this information as well. Yeah.
Nice. How long did you run the user testing?
So 20 people, right? I think each an hour. So I think it was maybe over 2 weeks. And I wasn't involved in this at all. This was really, really cool that the DevX team, in my case, did all of that. they were just really curious to see the dev portal in action, right? So that's always great if you as a PM don't have to push for it, right? If people just do it. So I think it was 2 weeks. Yeah.
Deepak, great talk. Thanks, Lambros. Where does security feature in platform engineering, if at all? And then corollary question is, how is security organized at Wise specifically? And how do they interact with engineering?
I mean, we do create, of course, a security profile, a risk profile for dev portal, right? Mm-hmm. There's also the question whether we should, in those metrics here, right? So we do want to have a squad and team view that shows you everything that's relevant for you, right? As a team, such as open security issues, right? Or maybe libraries that are outdated and so on. But to be honest, it is not right now, not a priority, right? Again, starting with the problem, right? The biggest pain points are around docs and discoverability, right? Context switching. So we do work with security, of course, to make dev portal secure, and we want to integrate metrics. But I think this is everything at the moment. Yeah. I can't hear you anymore. Is it me or?
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I think I just went. How's the tech docs quality measured?
I can show you a screenshot later on. I can't open this now. There's actually a drop down now that you can use. I think it is a few things. There's some open source scripts that tell you, typos, number of words, titles, diagrams, up-to-dateness, right? And I think also a third piece that we added recently is, again, user feedback. So I can just look at the docs and then there's a little pop-up, was this helpful, right? And I can say yes or no. And this also will be part of the score. So it's a bunch of things, and I can share this later on if you want, just ping me.
Interesting. Let's actually we have a couple of questions one question in the YouTube stream as well. So are you using tools like Pydantic? I don't know if you know it, to generate content for the site. Are you integrating your pipelines into the site?
So I'm not sure, I don't know about this tool. Pipelines is plans, yes. But again, dev portal, the issue is that you have all those plugins. You can do so many things, right, with dev portal.
Right.
But you really want to start with the problem, right? So yes, to increase adoption of dev portal. So if you want to improve documentation quality, then you have to have people use it, right? So and for people to use it, you have to provide them with stuff that they want to see, right? So yes, open PRs, builds, deployments is all planned to be added to dev portal, but just not at this stage at the moment.
All right. Let's see. With regard to the hypothesis, so these refer to the metrics. Did they exist prior to this project? And if not, did you start measuring first to establish a baseline?
So those hypotheses, right, they are derived from the value streams, right? So if you look at those value streams here, right, they have actually times on them, right? Now, it is, if it takes an hour, right, to understand a service, let's say, or to make a change to it, it's kind of hard to test that, right, in the user testing. Also, let's say, developer onboarding is also hard to test, right? Hypotheses are rooted in those problem journeys and pain points, but they're also just picked based on whether we can validate them in an alpha context, right? And a good point is like, why are there no numbers here, right? Why don't we say, yeah, we believe we can, increase developer onboarding or reduce the time by 50%, right? We should do that. That's actually what you should do in a hypothesis. You should actually put a number there, right? And then say, did you achieve that? Well, it's hard, right? So it's hard. We just wanted to use those to help us scope the alpha and to see if we're on the right track and make things better, right? It is just very difficult within like 2 weeks, right, to get those metrics. But obviously, once we roll out beta and it's already released, right, we do have a lot of metrics that we want to leverage to measure the impact, right? Time to first PR, time to 10th PR, right? The price per developer per day, lead time, and all those things, right? We would expect an impact on this number of PRs with the documentation change on them. Another one we want to measure, right? So this will help us get additional confidence that we, can achieve those hypotheses. But yeah, in the alpha scope, it just wasn't realistic to put those numbers on there.
Mm-hmm. Let's get another one from the YouTube. So Andrew's asking, do you host your own Backstage or do you use a hosted provider?
No, it's our own Backstage. Yeah.
Got it. And what was the most impactful developer loop, or I guess, user loop that increased the use of the dev portal?
Developer loop, you mean the use case that was most?
I guess so.
I mean, definitely the who owns something, and the dependencies for sure, and APIs were big pain points. And to be fair, the beta is out there now, right? But not that long yet. It's pretty right. So we going to observe now. We have, of course, a bunch of UI tools that help us analyze the behavior of users. But yeah, we're going to see how it goes and how people use it. And yeah, if it's not high enough, the adoption may have to pivot and add a few more UIs, right, that increase adoption and that creates those loops, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. This is, I think, a really interesting question from NASA. So is the dev portal intended as a single pane of glass for engineering? And do engineers need to complete workflows outside of the dev portal?
I mean, the vision, of course, right, is that, yes, you want to have, you want to reduce context switching, right? You don't want to have developers, use different tools to get their job done, ideally, right? But we are very far from that, right? And again, you have to, the problem comes first, right? So today we have tools that help people deploy, right? Or that help people, let's say, see metrics about the service or dashboards, right? And they are working great. There's no issue with this at all, right? There isn't really a need to change anything there, right? No urgent need. It is more like this long-term vision. Yes, we want to reduce context switching. Yes, we want to have reduced number of tools. But the first thing is really, what are the immediate pain points? What are the biggest problems, right, that we have today? And how can we address those, right? I think this is really the idea here.
And so what are the other tools that developers have to use right now? The main ones.
I mean, of course, there's the GitHub, right? So there's the CI, there's the CD. Of course, we have the whole stack, right? Like Elastic, Grafana. I mean, I think you can see it here actually. The factory, right? There are also a few tools to create resources in the cloud, right? Dashboards. So there's Confluence, of course, right, which is still there, right? So yeah, there are a bunch of tools that we have today. But yeah, I mean, the point is, of course, not to replace them, right?
Right.
But you want to minimize, or you want to basically the Grafana dashboards you look at very often, add them to dev portal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have least context switching, right? But then of course you're going to always go to Grafana to do the heavy stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Asher is asking, how much are you using Octopus? Is it for deployments to Windows or Linux also?
This is actually a custom built tool. So this, I'm not sure what he means by, so he can't know this tool if he's not working at Wise, right? It's something that we have built ourselves.
I see, because there's also Octopus Deploy. I think maybe that's what he thought it was.
No, it's actually, I didn't know that. No, it's actually our custom built tool that,
I see.
a custom tool to deploy. It's a CD tool, right, that allows you to create canaries and so on, right? And deploys to various clusters.
Yeah, funny. Also, really good question by Per. What's the size of a team from which you'd say Dev Portal will be beneficial?
I don't get why would there be a minimum size? If I'm even one person in a team, right, I still may use Dev Portal to see who owns something, to see.
No, I guess like size org. Right. So if you're like 5 people, probably you don't need this.
Yeah. I don't know, man. This is a good question. I mean, I don't know. Wow.
Maybe I can jump in there. Like we have we've done quite some research in general about developer platforms, right? Like kind of like what's the optimal size? What we find is anywhere between 20, 30 developer plus usually is where kind of like economies of scale, so to say, start to kick in. Everything below that, you can do it, but you're not going to have as much of an impact realistically.
I mean, also, I guess, right, back to those value streams here, right? You want to quantify the impact first, right? If you have 20 people, what's the time saving that they get through Dev Portal, right, that you expect? And is that worth the effort? That's something you have to consider, right? So I guess as you grow, right, keep asking your customers, right, what the problems are. Measure a lot of things, start to measure, right? So if you see that as you grow, your velocity goes down, right? As you grow as a company, you deploy less often, right? Or longer lead time, that's a sign that something is not going right? And you have to do something against that. I think my advice would be just measure a lot from the beginning, right? Invest in measuring metrics on engineering, team performance, team health, right? To then see early signs that there may be something required.
Absolutely. Tom from the YouTube, have you or do you plan to use infrastructure as code within Backstage to provision some platform resources such as an observability stack?
Yeah, we talked about that. So there's no immediate plan, but you can see here, there's like a DB self-service, right? There are different tools we use today to create cloud resources, and they have their own UI, right? So why do we need that? What we tell people is that there's no need to migrate all your stuff now to Backstage, right? There's no need. It's not urgent. If it does the job, it does the job, right? But yeah, anything new you build, use Backstage for that, right? So I got approached by somebody from our compute team who asked me this question, right? Can we create resources in AWS via Backstage? Can we execute an infra as code script, right, via the UI? Yes, you can, right? Do you want that? Depends, right? I mean, again, don't create a new UI, I would say, if it's already there, right? use Backstage, it's going to be much faster. But is it a problem today? Is it a big problem, right? Depending on that. But we have thought about it, but there's no plan today that we do this, say, anytime soon.
Got it. Wow. I'm afraid we're not going to get to all the questions. There's so many of them. Do you have a dedicated team supporting and maintaining your Backstage instance? I guess that's yours.
Yes. So as I said before, right? So we have a team which is called Developer Experience. It's 6 people, and they basically own this problem, and they also now also own Dev Portal, right? Yes, it's a team that doesn't do Dev Portal only, to be clear, right? But it is becoming a bigger and bigger part of their work. Yeah.
Got it. Maria, wonder what you use as a workflow engine. Some companies pick Temporal. What other options were considered? I'm not sure whether that's something that you guys are using.
Workflow engine. So what is meant by that? I guess, I mean, we do, of course, have some, I mean, again, I don't know what's exactly, to be honest, but we do listen to any changes made, right, to your GitHub Markdown to then publish this, right, in Backstage. This is a workflow engine, but I don't know which one we're using, honestly. I would have to check with the team. I can answer the question if you remind me on Slack.
Mm-hmm. Dan, and this is also another similar question that we got on the YouTube. Did you have to sell the Backstage to Wise Management, and if so, how?
Oh, yes. I mean, that's the sell, right? That's the sell. Right. Basically, show me anything that has more impact than this, please. Right. That's the sell. The idea of Dev Portal has been out there for, I think, 2 years or so before I started at Wise, right? But that wasn't the case, right? And then I, as a PM, started at Wise a year ago, and then I saw this, right? And then the question was, what's going on, right? And once you dig deeper, you see that, okay, a lot of this points to Backstage, right? And if you want to make the case, quantify it, right? Quantify it, ideally not even in time, ideally use pounds, right? Really use pounds, like what is the impact productivity? What do we lose every week, every month because of those like obstacles, right? Of those pain points, and what would it cost, right, to build this thing? That's the case, really. Yeah, but
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Did you do a proper like ROI calculation type of thing?
So the way we prioritize at Wise is we size our biggest opportunities, right, by impact on productivity, reliability, risk, and so on, cost, right? And we can compare the most impactful work that we have, right? And of course, we also subtract effort from this. Right? So this tells you then what is the most impactful thing. And the ROI, of course, here it's tricky because, I mean, it's going to become bigger, right? The problem as you grow, right? So it's only going to be more positive as the longer you wait and the earlier you invest in it, right?
Have you looked at JetBrains space?
I'm not sure if we.
I guess it's a service catalog alternative to Backstage.
So it's built on Backstage, or
no? I think it's an alternative.
Okay. I have to get the sheet out that we used to evaluate this. Has been a while, right? Maybe it's in there. I don't remember.
Do you remember which one was the sort of like closest competitor to it or option that you guys?
Yeah, there were a few managed services, but I forgot the names of the companies. Yeah,
maybe we can follow up on that. I think that would be interesting in the Slack. All right. I think we already ran over 15 minutes. So we'll take one last question. I guess, how do you plan for future maintenance and improvement of a new tool like this? Obviously, you have a dedicated team. What are the next thing that you look at?
So what's meant by maintenance? So the next big features, or what is the question exactly?
I think like maintenance, yeah, and then like, you know, shipping new features, expanding on what you have right now.
Yeah. To be honest, we just released this, right? To like the beta has been released recently. I'm not sure we feel the pain yet of maintaining this, right? I think it's going to probably become more painful in the future as we add plugins as well, right? So far, it's not that painful. Of course, the more you customize, the harder it becomes to upgrade, right? Feature-wise, the quality score, the search. We also want to, again, add a few plugins. We want to help teams. So it's not, so we as team, right? We only own the core of Backstage, right? But we want to have other platform teams, in product teams, add plugins to it, right? Work with us. Otherwise the thing won't scale, right? So we're going to invest in this, like training people and helping them develop, making it very easy to create plugins. That's another big work stream.
Absolutely, that makes sense. I think we're out of time, guys. Lambros, thank you so much. Clearly, people loved it. I'm going to drop in here the link to the Slack channel. If you guys are in part of that already, go join. And there is a new thread that I just started while we're here chatting for everyone to go and like post your questions, and we can hopefully continue the conversation there. But this was great. Thank you so much, Lambros, and thank you everybody for hanging out. See you